So what we're looking at here within our code editor is a very basic HTML document. And at the top, we're defining a document type. And this is a document type declaration. So in this case, we're using an HTML5 declaration. And this is important for the browser to be able to understand what type of document it is and how it should output the code that's available within that document. So this just helps it along. Now, if you've written HTML code before, you might be aware that you don't actually have to include any of this stuff, that if you do just write hello world in a text document or whatever type of editor you're using and call it HTML, and you open it up in a browser, you're going to see that the output is there. So this is the same thing within the server code as well as if we just open up that file and look at it. So by default, the document is assumed to be an HTML document, and it outputs any kind of text that it finds in there, and the browser just outputs that. But in order to structure your HTML, you should always have this document declaration and then have HTML opening and closing tags. So this is the basic structure of HTML, where we've got these opening tags and closing tags. And what this does is this tells that browser that any of the content between these HTML tags is going to be part of the HTML document. So it knows to look for additional HTML content between these HTML tags. So that's why we have HTML opening and HTML closing. So there is no additional slash. An opening tag just contains the HTML or whatever the tag name is, and again, here we see it within head, so we've got head opening, head closing, and we've got body opening and closing as well. So if we do save this and we go over to our web browser, we see that we do have this page. We see the title here at the top, HTML template, and that's the code that it's getting out of this HTML document. And as well with title, we see our opening title and our closing title. So the browser understands that anything between this opening title and closing title is part of the title of the web page, and therefore it displays it here at the top in the tab. And when we're referring to these types of tags, that this is the title element, this is the body element, this is the head element, and this is the HTML element. And it's just important to understand that these tags mark the opening and closing of that particular element that we've selected. And just for SEO purposes, when you are writing a title, it should be consistent with what the content of the page is. So that's always best practices, to title your page to match the content that you have within that body area. Now, one of the common types of tags that's used very often within HTML is the paragraph tag. And as you can see here, we're just opening it with a P, and that indicates that we're opening up the paragraph, and we're just going to type hello world, and then we're going to close that off. Paragraphs are recognized by the browser, and it's going to place some additional spacing between these two hello worlds. So when we go back to the browser and we refresh it, we see that in fact indeed they are paragraphs, and there is this spacing between the one line of spacing between these two different elements. So additional to paragraphs, if you want to do a new line, you can do a line break, and that's just a BR. So we can do a few line breaks here, and just to show you what the difference between these line breaks and paragraphs is, and we go back out and we refresh it, we see that the paragraphs have this extra spacing between them, and the line breaks don't have extra spacing between them. Now, another common tag within HTML are heading tags. So you have the option to do a heading 1, and again they're opening and closing. As well, you can do heading 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when we go into our web browser, we see that when we refresh it, They act similar to how the paragraphs acted, where they place that spacing between the different elements, and heading 1 is the biggest one, and it goes down from there. So this is a way to really highlight and bold out any information that you have within your HTML that you really want to attract attention to. And as you can see, it just really does stand out there compared to the regular standard text that we're using. These 3 types of tags, the paragraphs, the line breaks, and the heading tags, are probably going to be the most common type of tag that you're going to be using within your HTML code. So it's important to get familiar with them and how they look when you output them within your browser using HTML.